Good afternoon, I'm Rex McKee, in case might be two of you that don't know me, that's Rex too. And today I'm going to talk about functional medicine. Basically, I had Roseanne get this from the library. This is about the writings of Jeffrey Bland, who's been an author I followed for about 30 years. And it has to do with functional medicine. What we're going to do, first off, as we get started, I'm going to talk about medicine we have today very briefly, just to touch some points on it, to give you an idea of where medicine today is actually aimed at in your treatment. First off, it's allopathic medicine, and allopathic medicine right now is a very organ-centered medicine. We have all these different specialties that has to do with certain organs. We have cardiology, we have ENT, we have endocrinology, gastroenterology, dermatology, neurology, ophthalmology, infectious disease, and internal medicine. Most of them dealing with one organ system in the body. These are mostly symptoms that they're dealing with, that they're targeting. For instance, if you have high blood pressure, the medicines we'll probably give you to start off with might be something like an allopurinol or Prenadil, and it's based at stopping the action of an enzyme in the kidney that will cause or block the production of a vasopressor. In other words, a drug that causes increased resistance in the arterial wall and makes it narrow. It's just like a garden hose, you narrow it, you get more pressure. Well, if you block that, then the walls of the arteries become more elastic and blood pressure goes down. If that doesn't do it, we'll add maybe a calcium channel blocker, and this actually works in the smooth muscles that surround the arteries and blocks calcium inflow into it so that they don't constrict. If the smooth muscles don't constrict, the artery walls will expand, and it's like a hydraulic system. Same amount of fluid, big space, down the pressure goes. But what's missing here? They haven't really dealt with what the underlying cause of the problem is. And probably it's not going to be effective by those medications. But on the other hand, it's been shown you reduce blood pressure, you're going to reduce strokes, and you're going to reduce heart attacks. That's good. It does work most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. Now, some of the problems that we have with medicines are the side effects that are involved with it. And these have to do with the fact that there are foreign entities that's coming into the body, and sometimes the body recognizes that, and you get problems with it. You can have allergic reaction, which happens every once in a while, or you get kind of collateral damage in the other areas. How many have taken Motrin, ibuprofen? I think most of you probably do in their lifetime. Well, it works very well for headaches, and if you take enough of it and long enough, you can get an anti-inflammatory effect out of it and decrease it. And basically the way it works is that it inhibits two different enzymes, COX-1 and COX-2. And COX-1 is one that causes inflammation. COX-2 is one that is anti-inflammation. However, Motrin annihilates both of them, so you aren't getting an anti-inflammatory effect a lot of times, or you're getting other problems. Now, one of the things also is if you have a problem with blood flow into the kidneys and you take Motrin, it's probably going to decrease blood flow to the kidney. So if you're borderline kidney failure, it will put you in a kidney failure. And this, between all of these, plus the fact that it's effect on the stomach and the prostaglandins that regulate the stomach, causing loss of protection in the stomach against the acid. You get, I think it's over 100,000 people a year, 125,000 people a year that are hospitalized because of gastric erosion from the stomach. And they start bleeding from the stomach and black tarry stools, and a lot of them die. Over 10,000 people die a year from this problem. So you have side effects. I'm not trying to scare you on this. This happens. I think all the billions of pills are taken every year. But it does happen. And the older you get, the more problem it is. So what's the alternative? Well, there's another one is an alternative or it's also an additive. Functional medicine is a medical approach that's related to determining the imbalance in physical, and mental functions that can result in chronic illnesses. This has been around for a long time, and the reason I got interested in it was my father. My dad, when he was 63, he started having chest pains. He retired at 62. So first year out, he gets chest pains, and he's got unstable angina. And so he goes to the doctor, and the doctor tells Mom that, well, you better take over all the financial stuff, because I don't know if he's going to live another year or not. And my father was a med school professor, and not one to stand by and not investigate things. So he started looking around, and he came across a book by Dean Ornish on a special diet for unstable angina and heart disease. And it's a terrible diet. It's so hard to say. But my father is something I did not get from him. My father is a totally disciplined person. And he stood right by the diet. Basically, it's vegetables, a little bit of meat, forget sugars and stuff like that, forget fats, very low fat. And he stayed on it. Within 2 weeks, his chest pains are gone, and he did real well. He stayed on the diet, pretty much. And after a few years later, he started getting a little off, but not bad. Come 85 years of age, and Dad goes to a cardiologist, he's having chest pains again. And we take him in, cardiologist comes out all grim-faced, says, oh, Dad is in really bad shape, I don't know if he's going to last another month. And said, look at this, and he put the film of Dad's heart pumping. And we were looking at the coronary arteries ended about a third of the way down. You know, how do you live if your coronary arteries aren't there? Then we could see faint little things in the background. He developed collateral pathways for other blood vessels. And a lot of it had to do with the stimulation from the diet he was on. So my dad died 2 years ago, October of 2012, at the age of 98.
Oh my God.
And so, honest to God, I gave credit to, I didn't know it was called functional medicine at the time, but the idea was there. And I think that's why he lived to be 98 years old. His sister lived to be 97 and brother died at 90. But they weren't in bad shape like he was. Okay, so a lot of these things that they were saying about diet and that, they poo-pooed. Then, and they came out with the Human Genome Project of 2000, and they were able to map the whole human genome. Now, what does that mean? They got all these chromosomes, and in the chromosomes are all these little genes, and the genes are what tell the body what's going to happen, how to build stuff, how to pass messages on, and they were able to map them all. Yeah, they got it figured out. You know, cancer is going to be cured and all the rest of it. But there was a significant amount of DNA in there that they couldn't account for. They thought it was kind of a waste DNA and left over from the evolutionary period. But later on they found out that it's extremely important. It's the promoter DNA. It's the one that directs how genes are going to express their genetic, whether they're going to send inflammatory signals, whether they're going to send anti-inflammatory signals. And so now it's one of the most important things. So they got a lot to learn yet. But it did prove that with the receptor sites, that it can be affected by things that functional medicine are aimed at. Okay, so how does this gene expression look as far as function or feel or health? Can we have an effect on it by what we eat or what we do? Actually, functional medicine is basically concerned with three things. It's concerned with diet, lifestyle, and environment. And this is where that whole area of influence has been. They've been for years. Actually, you can go back into ancient peoples, and if you go back 5,000 years, it's the beginning of Ayurvedic medicine in India and that. And this is basically the way they approached most illnesses, is by changing diet, giving them different water to drink, and a whole bit. And it's not a whole lot different than what functional medicine is today, but yet it's been done for 5,000 years. Okay, now, one of the things I want to get across is that everybody, first off, has oncogenes in them. You have genes in your body right now that can cause cancer if they're turned on. Fortunately, they aren't turned on, or if they get turned on, if the immune system is with it and it's turned on, it can destroy those cancer cells before it gets going. And if it doesn't, then you get cancer, and you gotta go through all that other crap that you do with treatment of cancer. One of the things that is of interest with a lot of people is Alzheimer's. And of all the Alzheimer's that are out there, about 5% of them are linked to a gene, the APOE4 gene, and this is linked to an increased incidence, a great increase of incidence of Alzheimer's and of coronary artery disease or cardiovascular disease. And a lot of people, if they get genetic testing, they feel like it's a condemnation, that they're going to die. Well, we're all going to die, but the question is when. And what's come out of functional medicine in that is there are reasons why the gene, this particular gene, does its thing, why it promotes Alzheimer's. It's not by itself. It has to be turned on by something. It's I'm having trouble with I think we're already starting Alzheimer's. It's in conjunction with other things that go on. So what turns on this particular gene? Well, increased saturated fat in the diet, increased sugar in the diet, and a sedimentary lifestyle. And also decreased activity of the brain, sitting and watching CBS. News. I have a bias, I admit it. Now, so it doesn't have to be turned on. And actually, right now, they have identified 30 different things that can cause Alzheimer's. 30 different things. And this is in the functional medicine area. So now they're doing studies on all 30. They're trying to control all 30 things in a person's life to see if they can do away with Alzheimer's. Well, good luck. But you know, how is medicine done with Alzheimer's? If you look at what we have Namenda, we have Aricept, and how effective is it? It's not very effective at all. It's very poor. It's sad because people spend a ton of money. It's a little bit of hope, but it doesn't do much. They even say the best you can hope for is like maybe 6 months delay of the inevitable. But we don't even have to deal with it, because if you change lifestyle and diet, you can either delay it or not have it, or so they say. Other things that have been linked to Alzheimer's are diabetes, and there's a new term that's diabetes type 3, and it's actually diabetes in the brain. If you look at insulin and insulin levels, elevated insulin levels are very inflammatory. And what's happening in Alzheimer's is an inflammatory disease in the brain, for whatever reason. But this is additive to it. It can stimulate dementia and Alzheimer's. So what risk do we have for Alzheimer's? Well, we've got the central nervous system, by not using our brain enough. We have lipoproteins, which goes back to cholesterol in that. We have oxidative stress, and that can be due, well, we'll talk about it. There's a lot of different things. And elevated insulin levels. So if you want to get Alzheimer's, what do you want to do? Well, you want to have a diet that's rich in saturated fats and that's rich in sugars. That will raise your insulin. That can give you type 3 diabetes in the brain. You'll have poor tolerance to exercise. You don't bother stimulating your brain. And you might take in some toxic substances, maybe with heavy metal or whatever. Drinking out of a plastic bottle has the substance that has to do with making the plastic pliable is quite toxic. And though you just get a little teeny bit, it's trace. It doesn't go anywhere. It stays in you, in the fat and in the body. And this is very toxic over a long period of time. Think glass or porcelain, pottery.
What about milk bottles? I mean, our milk comes in plastic bottles.
It's paper, isn't it?
Like a gallon jug.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that. In fact, I don't
I
know.
thought about that.
It seems to me that they should be doing something about taking it out. I know industry has really been fighting hard against it, but I don't know if they have done anything about
I
it yet.
remember when we were first married, we got milk in the
Yeah.
glass bottle.
You gotta deliver it to your door. Forget that.
I thought about that the other day, because I don't drink milk or water out of bottles anymore, or plastic bottle, but what about the other stuff that I
Oh, we do all sorts of plastics. Look at all the tons of water that we drink. Whatever. But I don't know if that still has it in or not. And I bring it up, but I probably shouldn't because I don't know now if we still have it. But it's certainly been a problem. Okay, so what are some lifestyle? What encompasses that? Well, it's diet and choices in the diet, like taste, habits, likes and dislikes, approaches when it comes to food, what you drink, whether you exercise, toothpaste, soaps, things that you clean around the house. If you use one of the particularly bad things, if you polish your floors, your wood floors, and buff it, that's got bad stuff in it. There's a lot of different things. In fact, how possible it is to avoid everything, I had my doubts, but you can just do the best you can. But those are all lifestyle things. Anything you use in your life that you function with in your life. I'm sorry, I said lifestyle. I meant that's the environment. Okay. So what is functional medicine? How is it going to work? Well, it tries to mix and match the substances in our physiology as vitamins, minerals, nutrients, hormones, different metabolites, cellular building blocks to create an optimal health system for us. Now, the one thing I can see about functional medicine that can be a problem because you're dealing with changes in diet, changes in your habits, your lifestyles, changes in getting you to exercise more, is compliance. How many people want to go out right now and start a diet that has no chocolate cake in it, that has no pie in it, that has no candy or cookies? You might be able to do it, but you'll never get my grandkids to do it. Right, Pat? Okay, so how does functional medicine change genetic expression? Well, first off, let's talk a little bit about genetic expression and how messages are sent so that the gene is stimulated to produce what it produces. This is done by, it's picked up by, for instance, we're going to talk about in the digestive tract. If it picks up a substance that is toxic or that's good, one or the other, it can send a message to the liver if it's toxic and say, we have something toxic going on here, we need some way to deactivate it. And in the liver, the cells, called Cooper cells, are very similar to the cells that picked it up in the first place. And they recognize that there has to be something done in the cells to detoxify that. And so they produce something called more glutathione, and glutathione forms different enzyme complexes that will actually detoxify the product. If it's insoluble, they'll add something to it so it becomes soluble. And then, or if it's something that can be broken down, and break it down into pieces, and then it'll eventually be picked up and discarded by the immune system, and it goes out. If it's soluble, out the urine. If it's not soluble, it goes out in the feces. Those problems that are caused by inflammation, like problems of the central nervous system, lipoproteins, problems like high cholesterol, oxidative stress, and insulin levels, which are inflammatory, are all things that are aimed at. The areas that systems approach of functional medicine are aimed at are the immune system, the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the cardiovascular system networks. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to balance it. And again, if you look back into the 1400s and that, the way they practiced medicine is they tried to balance colors of the body. And when they got in balance, you were supposed to be healthy. But now we're right back to it again. When we get all of our genetic expression and our communication systems and our body systems all in balance, you're healthy. The problem is that most of us are walking around with our systems out of balance. We have too much insulin, and so we have inflammation, we have high blood pressure. We're working on you inflame the inside of an artery. It actually causes damage to the artery, and there's a little wound there, and the body reacts to it by plastering over it with plaque, with cholesterol in that. So we want to deal with that inflammation. We want to get insulin down, get less inflammation. We don't want arteries to be damaged, so they have to be plastered over. And so the coronary arteries go until all of a sudden you can't get blood through anymore. The whole idea of functional medicine is that we come up with a plan at the end, and you've been filling out these. These are going to give an idea of what areas that you are deficient in and what you need work in. And the idea, what I'm hoping, what I'd like to do if you're interested, is I'd like to do a series of talks on this, because there's no way I can cover it all. And I'm going to cover like the first part today. I'd like, 2, 3, 4 more. Where we can deal with each part of it, which will concern you all pretty much, because most people have imbalances going on in the body. But the whole idea when we get done is that you can get an idea of what you can do for yourself to design a change in your diet, your habits, your living system, lifestyle changes, and your environment to make you a healthier person. And that's what Jeffrey does in his book. And I would encourage you, if you can get a chance, read it before even the next talk, if I get to give one. And then you can ask some really good questions, and questions that actually have to do with this. And I'd be very happy to do whatever it takes to answer your questions. Okay, so what all affects genetic expression? Nutrition, obviously. There's a lot of ways that works. Social stress. How does social stress, you suppose? What happens when you get all stressed out? Donna?
Breathe more quickly.
What's that?
Might breathe more quickly.
We can, but no, social stress would be like your relationships to other people, maybe your wife or your husband, but your neighbor, the pharmacist downtown, whatever. If it really bugs you and you have problems with it, your cortisol levels go up. And cortisol levels, when they go up, cause a lot of different genetic expressions in the body. And when they're metabolized, they produce even more, because when they're metabolized, they produce a lot of different free radicals which can damage tissue. So you learn to relax, take it easy, don't sweat the little things. And the big things, probably, if they're going to kill you, don't sweat them either. Because that's what we do, we kill ourselves by doing this, so don't let it bother you as much. And then environmental toxins. And we have a lot of environmental toxins. We're living in a real pool of it here in Iowa. It's not an accident that Iowa farmers have a very high incidence of Parkinsonism. It has to do with toxicity. We don't have as bad levels of cadmium and some of the products that are found in gasoline, like if you go out in the east or the west coast, all those people there, they have pretty high levels in their soil, and the kids get into that, and that can affect them. And then sometimes it needs to be taken care of. So we try to eliminate toxins, we try to decrease our stress, and we provide things that are missing in our diet or in stress relief. And when stress release, I don't mean alcohol. That's not a good way to relieve your stress. It's a good way of causing increased stress as far as your body goes. The dietary, we'll get more into it. Okay, chronic illnesses. What do we mean by chronic illnesses, or what are some examples of it? Well, chronic illnesses would be dementia, depression, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, high blood pressure, muscle weakness, irritable bowel syndrome, sleep disturbances, chronic pain, autistic spectrum disorder. And in other words, autism for children. There is a link. Anybody have any of those problems? Don't forget, I know. So where functional medicine maybe varies from regular medicine is that we're looking at the whole person. That those forms that you filled out, that's looking at all of you. And if you go to a functional medicine doctor, they're going to have you fill out all sorts of stuff so they can get an idea of what systems are involved. If you know what systems are involved, then you know how to approach it. Whether you have to, if you're looking for heavy metal toxicity, whether you're looking for something that increased activity, like exercising in that can help, or whatever, or decreasing the sugar in your diet, or having a better diet. So think about the Mayo Clinic. Why is the Mayo Clinic so successful? You go up to Mayo Clinic to be seen, and you get out of there and you've seen how many doctors? Well, they all get together and talk it over. Like, well, who's got a problem with their left thumb? Yeah, the right toe. Anyway, they go after the whole person. But for most medicine, we don't have that. I think your family practitioner is probably one of the better ones. Like Matt here is great, and he's great at diagnosing, because I think he looks at the whole person. But you get to a specialist, they want to look at your, whatever their specialty is. They're not looking at all of you. And so they give you medicine. And if you've got a problem, if you've got several problems, you may end up with 5 or 6 medicines. Maybe more if one pill doesn't take care of it. And then probably more because when you get interaction, if you're doing 2 pills, you take another pill for the interaction of the other pill. But you're not dealing with the whole person. I hope. This isn't going to go to any doctors, is it?
Just on YouTube.
Okay, the functional medicine looks at the genetic uniqueness of each person. Because remember, in this whole room, there's nobody that's the same as the other person as far as their genetic expression. One thing, you don't all look alike. And you don't all have the same problems. And you certainly aren't all the same age. I think most of you are younger than I am. Anyway, what they're doing is they're looking at to see what the environmental behavior is, to understand the complex interactions that are part of the patient's history, and that's why you fill out those forms. And then looking at the physiology, and then the lifestyle of the person. Les goes home and drinks 2 6-packs every night, and he's got high blood pressure. Well, I can understand it, and so can they. That's what they're looking for. lifestyles that are a problem. And then they try to pinpoint the one that leads to the illness. And if you got several illnesses, it may be more than one. But basically, you try to identify the biggest problem, and then you go after that. And then the doctor will work with the patient to design interactions to either prevent a problem or else reverse it. Some of the interesting things that I always learned that you have all the brain cells that you were born with, and that's all you get. And now all of a sudden they're saying, no, you produce more brain cells. But you have to be stimulated to produce more brain cells. And when Les drinks 2 6-packs a night, he's actually destroying them. He's not helping making more, he's making less. And all that is part of it. What's that? Oh, Les, you gotta shape up. Okay, so what they're looking for is the imbalance. They want to find a proper match between the genetic uniqueness and the environment and the lifestyle and the behavior. In other words, something that you can live with too. And that's why it takes both the patient and the interaction with the doctor, or in this case, book, whatever, to come up with something that you can live with. Because if it's like Dean Ornatius' diet, there aren't many people that can live in such a strict diet, even if it saves their life. It's just hard to do. So they're doing all this, they're looking at the relationship between genetic uniqueness, environment, lifestyle, and behavior, so they can realize the maximum potential for increased vitality of genes and increased organ reserve. What's one of the big reasons you die? Your organs pool out. The tissues in your body don't have that reserve to come back again for whatever reason, whether it's the fact that you have a lot of atherosclerosis, you're not getting good blood supply, you're not eating the right things, your insulin levels are off the charts so that your cells don't recognize the signal that the insulin gives when it tries to attach to the receptor. And what happens is then you get increased blood levels of glucose to the point where it starts tying up with different proteins, makes them inactive, your kidney fails. You go blind. Or whatever. It's loss of function. However, it got to early enough, lowering the insulin levels can reverse it if it's not too far along. So they're looking for that and increase the organ reserve, and this will extend lifespan and health. And like I said, somewhere, I'm sure I read that he said 13 years, which sounds good to me. So what we're going to, in the book, we're going to look at 7 different areas that functional medicine attacks. And the first one is assimilation and elimination. In other words, we're going to talk about the digestive tract, taking food in, absorbing nutrients, and then processing them, excreting them to the point where they're either you urinate them out or you defecate them out. Defense, which is the immune system. Detoxification, how we take products that come into us that are byproducts. Your body all the time is getting rid of old